Yeah. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Do you see it?
What's your Twitter handle?
At Kito99. Or you can use the Int Java News one, which no one except for me uses. But if you ever want, like, you can actually sign up to use it if you want. Got a whopping
All right,
0
there we go.
viewers. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to hit record here.
Plus, I haven't shared.
Okay, I guess we should start this show. Huh?
Yeah, do it.
I just realized this is going to be on the YouTube broadcast, and we didn't really say we were starting the show. So, anyways, so hello.
Just tell YouTube I haven't
What?
shared.
Huh? What? Huh?
You still there?
Yeah. What'd you say?
Oh, that YouTube that I'm telling YouTube I haven't shared yet.
No. What you're telling YouTube is nothing really. It's just that we're currently broadcasting on YouTube now.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm already telling. I'm telling YouTube all my secrets. All right.
Oh yes. You should change your camera angle though.
Oh, what's it doing? Oh, there.
Oh, that's better. You just look like you were looking at the ceiling, I guess. All right. Well, anyways, welcome. Hello. Welcome to the Enterprise Java Newscast. This is episode number 35, recorded on July 26th, 2017. I can't believe it's July. So I'm your host, Kito Mann, with my co-host, Daniel Hinojosa.
There was a show where they said they were making fun of all the news reporters who said exactly that. I can't believe it's July. I'll need to find it, but they played like every local newscast. There was like, oh, it's July. I can't believe it's July.
Oh no! So does this mean I can be a news anchor now? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Good morning, everyone. It's July. I can't believe it's July.
Woohoo! So unfortunately, Ian Hlavats, the other member of our crew, could not be here today. He had some work deadlines. That damn work always getting in the way.
I have deadlines too, and I'm really stressed about it. But oh well. I said I would do a podcast, so here we are.
All right. So I think we recorded last time. It's been like 3 months or something in April.
The quarterly report.
Yes,
Kito and Dan.
Yes. So what have you been up to the last couple months?
Too much. Got a lot going on. Feels good, but I like being busy. But sometimes I don't like being busy because I got stuff to do, but other stuff to do, like more, lazy things to do. But it's going okay.
Yes.
Got a lot of trainings. Have a Scala and Spark one coming up next, which I'm pretty stoked about, but have a play framework looks like, and ACA streams, TDD and Java. So all the stuff I like teaching are up my alley, and going to do some writing. I don't think it's quite official yet, so maybe next podcast I'll talk more about that. And yeah, it's just a lot of great stuff coming up.
Very cool. Yeah. I have a question for you. Have you felt the demand for Scala stuff has gotten bigger or smaller?
I think finally I'm able to say it's gotten bigger, and I think Apache Spark's kind of like push that to the forefront. So Spark has multiple APIs that you can use, Python, Java. It seems that it though was built for Scala, and so I think that's why there's more of a push towards it. And I think what what's coming out in the future is going to be a lot of good stuff from at least the Lightbend side of things. And I think also what probably helped is Java 8. That Java 8 kind of got people thinking a little bit more functionally. So now Scala doesn't look like this dangerous deep end, more just of a natural progression into here, let's throw in some pattern matching with tuples. You already know functions, so maybe this language isn't so bad.
That's a good point. Yeah, it does. It does. It's sort of like eases you into the whole thing, which is cool.
Yeah, and I could see from a JDK7, Scala looked like, what the hell is this? This is so scary. But yeah, maybe just a quick thought I had right now was maybe, maybe because Java 8 made Scala less scary. People are attracted to it now.
Makes sense. I'd like to play with it again. I haven't touched it in years,
Yeah.
but uh, but yeah, I guess I haven't really made any effort, which would be why. So, but
So
I should play with it
it's
again.
still my favorite language, but definitely some of these Haskell-y languages, including Haskell, has really taken my interest. We'll see where that ends up. We had talked previously about Elm on the front end. Probably
Hmm.
talk a little bit more about that today when we talk about UI stuff. But Haskell, and then there's another language called Idris, which takes what Haskell does and supposedly gets rid of some of the needless complexities of Haskell, even though Haskell to me is already a pretty great language.
Huh. That's kind of
Yeah,
cool. I haven't really heard of that one. What's that one called? I'll add to the show
Idris,
notes.
or I don't know how people pronounce it. I probably heard 100% of the time Idris as the pronunciation, but who knows?
Idris.
Idris, correct.
Pascalish language.
Yeah.
Is that a VM language as well, or not?
No, none of the Elm is on the JavaScript, and Haskell is compiled direct. And I don't know about
Okay.
Idris, but I would bet that it's also the same, compiled
Right.
direct.
Right. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
So I haven't been doing any of those cool things as you, any of the cool things as you, which is why we're both on this podcast, and it's why it works
You
so
do
well.
all that cool web component stuff.
Well, what's funny is like for the last few months, what I've kind of done all over the place. I spent a couple months on a pretty hardcore Java EE project doing some JSF and Prime Faces stuff, but also doing a lot of Selenium testing, a lot of just straight up
Yeah.
Java Selenium testing.
I
Um,
love like the technology. I love Selenium, but man, keeping those tests straight and alive,
it's a lot of
it
work.
takes a lot of work. One foul move of shifting a component from, or just renaming it, or getting rid of the ID tag, or getting rid of the name tag, so much can go wrong.
Hmm.
It's such a fragile process to maintain those tests.
It is, but it kind of forces you to, especially like with JSF apps, it's like you kind of, it's very easy for the developers in JSF apps to like, use
You
the
know what?
ID in too many places anyway. So it's like, well, okay, if you're gonna, you have to give it an ID, you have to think about it, and then not change it.
You know what? You're probably right about that, and that's one of the things I absolutely loved about JSF is the rigor in which you have to maintain your IDs, because its
Yeah,
tree
especially
internal tree
parsers. Yeah.
structure is dependent highly on those IDs. That you do have to think about it, and the benefit you get from it is probably easier Selenium tests in the end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
because you don't
true.
want Selenium tests based on IDs called J underscore 001 or whatever.
Well, yeah, because the next time you restart the server, they'll break.
They'll
So
break, right? Yep, that's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, and the other thing with Selenium tests is the whole it's timing, right? And I find this is harder for people that are less familiar with test writing those sort of tests to get, is that okay, your test needs to be able to deal with the fact that this thing may take you know 30 milliseconds to show up or 2 seconds,
Hmm.
depending on network latency, what other little random issues happen on that machine, like,
Right.
and your tests need to be able to perform. I spent all this time with this dude who was writing all his Selenium tests inside the browser. I mean, inside the debugger. I think it's really more of an issue with his ability to write code. But at the end of the day, the timing on everything he was doing was very different than when you actually run it like normally. So like all of his tests would fail when he ran them outside the debugger. And it's like, well, yes, you're not stepping through it. So the
Right.
timing
Oh,
is just
totally.
totally
I
different.
know what you mean now.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But well, this was an interesting deal.
Yeah,
So,
because once you put Ajax-y, JavaScript-y kind of stuff in there, that timing is critically important, and that's why you may never get like 100% of tests all the time, just because you're right. The timing's always going to be a little bit off, and that latency is that surprise latency that you cannot, you know, have on a consistent basis is gonna pop up every now and then and ruin your.
yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. I was also working on an Angular 2 project, and for integration testing, or they call it E2E testing, end-to-end testing, they use Protractor and
Hmm.
what is Jasmine. And Protractor is really just a wrapper around Selenium JS. So
Mm.
again, it's essentially writing Selenium tests.
Hmm.
But of course, they do all this. They do a lot of automatic waiting for you. So basically, for any operation, it'll automatically wait a specified time. So it makes that part a little bit easier. But
Okay.
then, we were testing a page that what was it about this page? It didn't. Oh yeah, yeah. In order to run the test, I had to like log into a firewall or something first, which is
Weird.
not an Angular page.
Huh.
So like you have to do all these weird things to turn off the Angular support for the non-Angular pages of your tests.
Man,
So it's just been kind of interesting.
the
But
ceremony that JavaScripters have to go through is just insane. This is kind of funny.
well, it's sort of the truth, but really at that point you're just dealing with more of the nuances of that particular testing framework and the fact that it, you know,
Now, yeah, yeah,
does some
I've seen
Angular
that before.
specific stuff.
I did a JavaScript TDD recently, and I rarely ever hang out in the Node JavaScript world.
Hmm.
It's pretty amazing the kind of weird ceremonial things you got to do. I almost feel like MacGyver every time I enter that world. Just I need to gather two chipmunks, some tinfoil, a book of matches, and lotion, and just like concoct something from all these different elements. It's just amazing, just the
Well,
stuff you
what
have to go through.
have you seen much of the Angular 2 stuff at all?
No,
You should got to look at it because honestly, it looks like Java because they prefer TypeScript. So all the examples are in TypeScript. Although there are JavaScript versions that you can use pure JavaScript if you want to.
yeah, it's amazing how
Mm.
fast TypeScript has taken hold because of Angular 2.
Yeah, well, it's been great for me because I started using it before Angular 2 was released because I was using it with Polymer stuff, and I've been enjoying it a lot. But
Uh,
but the way Angular is done, Angular 2 or Angular 4 now, they've jumped versions. But but
as Java
it's
programmers, we have no idea how that works.
of course not. We're, I think, yeah, isn't it still technically 1.8
Yeah, we're
JDK8?
at 1.8 version 8.
Um, anyways, it's just really a whole bunch of annotations and dependency injection. So like it
Wow.
just you just have all these because in TypeScript they have annotations but they're called decorators. They work a little bit differently, but it's the same idea. You're
Hmm.
providing metadata and you use an at sign,
Hmm.
looks like an annotation. um, and uh, and there are actually classes you write that are just nothing but annotations. I'm like, dude, this looks like just like Java. um,
Interesting.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like what I wonder. Like, it kind of makes sense to me. Some of it seems a little complicated, more complicated than it should be. But I think about it coming. It must be really hard for like the Angular JS folks and people who are not coming from Angular to come to that from a lot of the other JavaScript frameworks,
Right.
because it's like, okay, well now I've got to learn dependency injection. I've got to learn this new
Yeah,
language. I've got
those are good
to,
things.
it is. I'm just sure it seems like a lot of overhead to them.
Yeah. Now, I know. Sorry, I had to go backwards to turn on my fan. It is
I
Albuquerque
forgive you.
after all. The uh, I guess the head person. I don't know if he's still the head of Angular, Michiko Hevery. I don't know if that name
Yeah, I don't
sounds
know.
familiar. So if you want to do a search on long time ago, not too long ago, he was he just worked on the Java side over at Google, and he wrote a series of blog posts that turned into a PDF in a series, Google's Guide to Testing or
Hmm.
Google's Guide to Testability. It's a great little PDF, and it just tells you about the best way to test code. And he was at least was an avid tester. I think he brought a lot of that over to Angular, although I could be wrong since I don't use Angular. I'd have to take a look at it as well. So
I
many of the
suspect
designs are on purpose, I would think, given Mishko Hevery's need for testability,
that
that a
totally
lot of
makes
these were
sense.
derived for a reason.
Yeah. Well, and I found that the integration test kind of a pain to get going, but
Mhm.
the unit testing there is just totally integrated, like into everything. I mean, they make
Right.
it really easy.
Okay.
So,
Good. That's good to hear.
yeah. That's another thing. Polymer does that really well too with the unit testing stuff. So
Great.
it's cool to see that. Makes life easier.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, so we have a
If
few
only people
topics. Oops,
tested.
sorry.
No, I'm kidding.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say if only people tested. So it's great to have all these available, but I
I know
think people are
it's
just like
funny because
tests.
it's like a never-ending battle.
What's a unit
Um,
test? That's right.
Although I have been impressed on one team, I haven't gotten to the point where like tests are required by all developers, which is kind of what I like. Even though some people think it's bad to require things, I think that should be a requirement. Um,
If
but
there's a paycheck, you can require as much as you want.
exactly. Um, but I did manage to influence one of the key developers in that team to extensively do testing in their like flagship product. Um,
Yeah.
and
And
that to me has been a huge one. That's gone really well because he's probably extremely he's extremely thorough and detail oriented. So he immediately understood the benefit, you know.
yeah,
So
totally. Yeah.
so that's been cool.
The thing, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go into testing. Since
It's all good.
I do a lot of training on testing.
Yeah.
I always bring up there's every engineering analogy has tests associated with it. Can you imagine your car without unit tests? I mean, we kind of saw that with the airbag scenario probably a couple of years ago, where that
Hmm.
one particular unit was not tested very well, and it
Yeah.
cost millions of dollars. Sank a extremely large corporation just because they didn't test their airbags too well. So every component in the car is tested, but it's also integration tested. How do the tires work with the axle? How does blah, 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 and all that together? And then you have your system tests and your crash tests. We're not doing anything different. We're developing a system very much like a car. So, and it's always amazing how people just forgo the unit tests and then get surprised later on that things things have a few surprises that they weren't thinking about in the beginning.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I'm
Yeah,
getting
and
into preach mode right now.
I understand. I mean, what the problem though I find is inertia. It's like I find if the unit tests, if the testing framework or apparatus is not set up from the beginning of the project,
Yes,
it's really hard to add it.
really,
Not
really
not
hard.
technically, but
Right.
to add, to get the code base and everything.
Sure. Yep.
Um, yeah, and that drives me crazy because I've been on a couple where like I wanted to do it, set it up, but I didn't have the time and I wasn't the primary developer, so the test
Yeah.
didn't get
So
written.
you're at the
You
mercy
know.
of the culture within that company as to how much
Hmm.
testing you can do and what. Yeah, that's that's tough to do as well. Amazing.
Indeed.
Yep.
All right, so let's see. We got a few different topics
Woo,
to
that
talk
was quite
about.
an introduction.
I know, but it was a good one.
Yeah.
See,
Yep.
that's the point.
All right.
Uh,
Item one.
so in the last 3 months, random things have happened. We just picked a few. And one of the things I thought I'd mention, it happened a couple months ago, but Google I/O. Google I/O is the annual conference from Google where they talk about a lot of developer stuff and also new products and stuff as well. But it's essentially their developer conference. And I've never been to this conference. I should try and go sometime. I've never actually tried. I think this is one of those conferences where all the presenters are Google people. I don't think they actually.
Oh, really?
I don't think they have sessions that are non-Googlers, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Anyways, it doesn't never occur to me as something I could submit a session to. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
But they always have lots of great topics, and I'm always looking for stuff on web components because that's a key area of interest. So they announced, it had been released a little bit earlier, but they announced Polymer 2.0, which is the new version of their web components library. So
Okay.
for those who don't know, web components are a new W3C standard for basically building your own tags in the browser. And there's a few different specs that make it up, but now we're at a point where Chrome and Safari ship the key ones, which are like custom elements and the template element.
Hmm.
And Edge is, I think they added like one of them, or they're adding one of them. Nothing's going to come to IE, of course, because IE is not being developed anymore.
Right.
And Firefox is planning to do stuff too. So basically, we're at the point where on the mobile devices, we actually do have full coverage for web components, which is kind of awesome because everything's using Chrome or Safari.
Great.
And then on the desktop, you basically are going to end up using polyfills if you're not using Chrome or Safari. And if you're not familiar with polyfill, it's basically like an implementation of a standard that can run in an older browser. And so basically, you load some JavaScript file and it provides all those features to older browsers. So
Wow, it looks great too. Yeah, I'm looking at it here. There's also a Polymer conference next month in Denmark.
I know, and I really, I should have put that in the show notes. I'll add that to the show notes. I really was going to go this year, but in the previous years, it's been in like October, I think. So
Okay.
my plan, I was thinking, okay, yeah, October. I'll plan on going this year because normally I go to conferences when I can speak because it's I don't want to travel all the time, so I just limit it to the conferences where I know I'm going to speak anyways.
Right.
But so in the past, they haven't even had a call for speakers. It was all Googlers. So I thought, okay, well, I'll actually pay and go to the conference this fall. And then I find out it's in August, and already have plans in August. I have a friend from out of town coming. There's all this family stuff going on, so I will not be there. A couple of my colleagues will be there though, so that's cool.
Right on.
So that conference was just all about Polymer, and it's usually pretty cool, and everything ends up on YouTube as well. So
Great. Oh, that's
um,
such a good community,
yeah,
it looks like.
yeah, it's pretty awesome stuff. And Polymer just provides like some extra features on top of web components, so you can build vanilla web components without Polymer using the W3C specs. And with Polymer, you just get some extra features to make your life easier, and you also get data binding, which is handy. So that's
Cool.
why basically because you get data binding and stuff, we can build full apps with just Polymer without Angular or anything else.
Okay.
So anyways, good stuff. So Polymer
All right.
2 adds all these great new features and builds on top of the
So
new
so
specs and
what's meant by
stuff.
data binding? What do you mean by that?
Just if you have some JavaScript object somewhere, you can
Oh,
have the framework keep that in sync with properties on your element in the page.
I
So
see. Okay.
it's the
Okay.
same as using expressions in a JSF app or any server side.
Got it.
It's just that this is all in the client.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So another thing that was the big Google I/O thing was this whole progressive web app concept, which is something Google's been pushing. And it's pretty fascinating. So basically, the idea with progressive web apps is that you can deliver a web app which is actually really fast on a mobile phone, and It loads really fast. It actually caches data and stuff, so it works offline. Um,
Ooh, cool.
and it actually makes it easy to, have it as an app you would put on your home screen. So on your mobile device, you can put it on your home screen, and then you can come back to it later. It'll pop up really quickly like a native app, um, and basically, load stuff when it can, when it's connected.
Right on.
Uh, and the idea is that you can do all this by pre-caching stuff by using Service Worker, which is another new standard,
Hmm.
which basically gives you sort of a proxy into the network stack. So you
Wow.
basically you get the data the first time, and then you can just cache it for later. You can store it in local storage and then
Holy
retrieve it
crap.
if there's no network connection. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
It's amazing, you're talking about all this, and one of the recurring themes in our expert panel on No Fluff Just Stuff is, you know, knowing all this, and we're getting to the point where it's nearly impossible. I mean, anyone can read up on a certain technology, and what I'd like to do is, even though I'm not going to use it, obviously I like talking to people like yourself that are in this particular realm. Like I just like reading articles for stuff I may never do, but one of the recurring themes is that we're becoming very much like the medical community, that there's so much going on in UI, so much going on in backend, so much going on in distributed
mm,
programming that you're it's over. No one's going to be a specialist anymore on it as a full stack. I mean, it's those days are gone. It's just so much to know, and you're bringing a lot of knowledge here, and it's just amazing how far the UI side has advanced, and all this technology is just kind of hard to keep up with.
it is, yeah, and like, yeah, for me, it's sort of the other way around. I've been watching a lot of the microservices stuff, right,
Okay, yeah,
and trying to keep up with what's going on, but since I don't get paid to do microservices,
that's right.
there's only some level, there's only so far I can get until I actually, work with it more.
Right, right,
And also when you talk about stuff like, Spark or Akka, I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to keep an idea about what the hell that stuff is.
right.
So, but yeah, in terms of knowing it all, that would be very difficult.
Sorry, I'm just looking
So,
at the post office lady or the post lady. See if she's going to ring the doorbell during the podcast.
are you checking out your postal worker?
That's right. I just don't want the doorbell to ring
I see. I just got one of those Ring doorbells, so I'm good with that.
because I
Uh,
have a Visa, passport Visa.
oh,
She's
yeah, you're
holding
waiting
it
on
up
it.
there for a while. There might be a
Yep.
doorbell today. She had.
So what else was I gonna say? Anyways, I don't know if there's a particular thing about progressive web apps. I just know there are a lot of sessions at Google I/O on about it. So if you're interested, you should check it out. There's a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube, and I've actually been slowly going back through the I/O sessions and listening to them
Great.
while
Awesome.
walking and stuff. So
There it is. Sorry about that. I knew it.
you got it.
Uh,
You got your
she rang the
package.
doorbell. You know what?
Okay.
She's walking away.
You can put me on hold. It's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. I knew this day would come, and I'm like, watch, it's going to be right in the middle of the podcast. So, editor,
Yes.
will cut off here. Sorry about that.
No worries. So we will pause here for just a minute until Dano returns.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh, no big deal.
All right.
All right, editor, continue. Okay, so now that Dano has his mail,
That's right.
uh, the next thing I wanted to talk about was sorry, I got distracted by a Slack chat. Java EE update. Yes. So thought it was worthwhile mentioning that from what I've seen and heard, Java EE 8 is actually on track. I know it's hard to believe.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, I saw that too,
but
and that's pretty impressive.
yeah, the only thing I think I've heard recently is sort of stalling is the security API.
Okay.
Um, which to me is probably the most interesting one because it's been missing security for God knows how long since it came out,
Wow.
I guess. Um, so having some type of accurate security, or not accurate, but standard security will be awesome. Uh,
Okay.
but currently, JSF 2.3 has been out for a while. It looks like Jason P is, oh yes. You try to click on a link for any Java thing and it doesn't work anymore. All right.
Oh, I know. Remember Java server faces? Like it was one of the things that used to bug me when I was still deep into Java server faces was the documentation, and the website would hardly ever work. Remember, and it wasn't even
Yeah,
too long ago when we were still complaining about that. And
it's
back when it
still
was
not
still
working.
under Sun, and then Oracle took over, and I guess things gotten a little bit better ever since, but I guess not. I don't know.
It still needs work. Yeah, I mean, but actually, I think what I was getting at was the whole Java.net being gone. Like, I just clicked on the link for Jason P,
Hmm.
and
And
since Java.net's not there, it tries to take me to GitHub, but apparently that particular GitHub link is not
it's too
valid.
bad. Oh, that's so crushing.
Yeah,
It's that
but
web presence that just makes people unsure about the technology, and it
I
sucks.
know, I know,
Yeah.
it's really annoying. So JSON P, the Java API for JSON processing 1.1, that's actually done. It's done in May, final release. All right. And I think CDI is
Yeah,
done.
CDI is getting an upgrade too.
Yeah, there's CDI too. And that's out too. Okay, so a lot of them are done. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but
Right.
yeah. But a lot of them are done. And I think the final release is supposed to be around Java 1. I'm guessing. I don't think they have announced the date. Maybe it'll be sooner. But I'm just glad
So
to see them
so
all
tough
moving along.
question. Um,
Mhm.
is it too late, or is it worth a shot for Java EE given this?
I don't think it's too late, and I'm saying this because I still get work doing Java E stuff.
Right.
And some of it's even like updates and refreshes, like to older stacks. So,
Okay.
you know, like for example, I'm working with one client on a JSF Prime Faces app that's basically a rewrite of an older app.
Hmm.
You know, and they didn't want to jump to some JavaScript framework because they just don't have the skills internally and
Yeah.
time to retrain their staff on the
You know
latest
what's interesting?
thing. So
Um, we had a over in Salt Lake City, and I'll come back to the to Java EE, and
hmm
maybe the same thing applies. We were talking about build tools, and in the No Fluff Just Stuff conference, there used to be a deep, I would say hatred, but I can't think of a better word for for Maven, and as a build tool, and it's very XML-y, very rigid, and I came out lightly supporting it, but then some of the others came out strongly supporting it. And one of the things that came up was how Maven is so structured, it works perfectly for teams. That you bring someone in and they're able just to run Maven compile and they get it.
hmm
Whereas some other ones that use scripting, Gradle has a kind of a mixture of both, but
Yeah.
anytime you add scripting, you're going to have to, look into that build tool and see what that script does. Whereas Maven is, you pretty much know what Maven compile, Maven clean, and all that's going to do.
Yep.
That
Yep.
rigidity. And so, circling back to Java EE, it may just very well be that Java EE is perfect for teams. There's a rigidity to it, but there's a benefit. There's like the Java EE way of doing things
Mm-hmm.
that in the JavaScript world, there are so many components and there's so much Wild West going on that, as far as a company investment, maybe rigidity is a good thing, having that, one or two ways of doing things. JSF is quite rigid. Like we stated before, you need your IDs laid out a certain way. You need to think about the structure of your tree. I would argue that, JavaScripters maybe don't care that much about it. And yeah, just a theory on my part.
I'm not sure. I mean, they think about their element tree, I think, to some extent. You know,
Okay.
the DOM nodes and everything. Um, but I agree with you though that I mean, there's a certain level of. I mean, I think for any existing technology, there's a certain level of inertia, right?
Yeah.
So if you know the technology is still being maintained, you have a team that understands it and supports it.
hmm
The cost of switching is very high, right? So you need to be able to justify it.
Right.
Um, and since I mean, just the fact that Java EE8 is moving forward is just going to keep a lot of people on the platform because they feel like
Right.
it's not an abandoned platform.
Right.
You know,
Although we
um,
were talking about a possible abandonment not too long ago. I think there was a
I
fear of
know.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there was a huge fear. But I think through the Guardians and everything else, we've managed to breathe new life into it. So,
Yeah.
and I've been pretty amazed by some of the community contributions from people. Just looking, I saw more from internal from the JSF expert group, and I was also on a couple others.
Oh, interesting.
And but I saw some of the JSF guys also working on CI or security or whatever. And you can say what you want about any of the specific specs that you may not like you may not like JSF, or you may not like, let's say you don't like JAX-RS or JPA or something.
hmm
Um, but you can't really argue that they're all like, some of them are really quite good. Um,
Oh, Jax RS
like I
is
don't think,
extremely good.
yeah, JAX-RS is good. Bean validation is awesome.
Yes.
Servlet is great at what it does. It doesn't do a whole lot else, but it doesn't need to,
Right. But
right?
that was
It's
one
a
of the
great foundation.
forerunners into web.
Exactly. And now it has HTTP2 support finally. um, so uh, so yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. And even if you're in the Spring ecosystem, Spring does a good job of picking and choosing some of these. So
Sure. Yeah.
um,
Well, Spring, if I'm not mistaken, still uses Spring MVC for nearly all of its apps.
yeah,
And to
yeah.
be honest with you, I'd rather I'd rather do JSF than Spring MVC.
Well, I think the difference though is a lot of people end up doing Spring MVC and REST stuff with it.
Yeah.
Because I think doesn't Spring Boot even use Spring MVC internally?
Right, internally, like I don't know what
Yeah.
what programmers tend to use on the front end, and so
Yeah, I'm not really sure what's the
I'm
most
not
popular thing,
right.
but my guess is they use it a lot just for REST stuff. But I think that you have the option, of course, to do more dynamic stuff
Yeah.
if you want to.
I think the JSF and the Spring what was that called, the Spring Webflow
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just oh, that was such an
I
excellent
remember that.
combination.
Yeah, that was
That
really
works
good.
so well.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, moving on. I think we'd be remiss if we did not at least mention Java 9 and Jigsaw.
Okay.
Um, I
That
haven't.
was weird.
What?
No, just the little soap opera that
Oh yeah.
and still is going along with the Java 9 jig. So
Well, can you explain it succinctly? Because I've been sort of following it, but I'm not sure I'll be able to explain it that well.
Jigsaw componentizes like libraries, and that a certain module will state that for this particular library, it is dependent upon, from what I understand, something like Apache Commons, a certain version, less than a certain version in order for that to work. So you should be able to load that up on the JV or any kind of build tool, and based on that module system, everything could be class loaded based upon the dependencies that it has and done in isolation, so that way there's no conflict with what they need. But as per, I'm just coming in from ignorance, what some of the arguments were against it, and I think people still felt it was a little bit rushed and it was going to break a few tools. Excuse me.
Bless you.
And I think that was one of the fears behind it. And probably I should have studied a little bit more before this topic came up. But I think that's what the issue was around it.
That was kind of my understanding too. It's like it was kind of done, but like it passed. It failed like the JCP ballot, I think.
Yeah, the initial one, and it almost seemed like actual politics that happens in Washington D.C. because it failed. And then it seems like they have that Oracle has a majority whip, and went across to all the others and just whipped them into shape. And now I'm like even more leery about it.
Well, they
Go
turned
ahead.
off something, right? I was looking up this, so and I remember hearing something about it, but I guess the deal is you can turn it off, the modular stuff off by default. Like I think it's turned off by default now. So basically, it's not going to break your stuff if you just
Yeah,
run
so
it,
this one
but
says
you
here,
can turn it
Jigsaw
on.
does not provide a clean upgrade path for Maven-based projects to move from the packaging of code into jar files. Or I think I was written it a little bit weird. So essentially, from the jar file structure to modules. Yeah,
Interesting.
and detailed concerns authored both Red Hat and external Maven experts. The key Maven concern is known as automatic modules. And for many in the community, the situation as regards to Maven is potentially far worse than the compatibility problems with either of the extant vendor module systems. Okay, so I guess Maven is really tied into this as well,
That
since
makes total sense, though.
yeah, and I guess that does make sense since Red Hat. I think Red Hat does everything in Maven. It prefers that as the common Java tool, and they knew that by bringing this in that there was going to be an issue with it. I'm not sure it's the onus of Oracle or on Maven, but yeah, I guess it's a legitimate concern. I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can't undercut the most used build tool in your ecosystem just because you want to push
yes.
something out. Yep. True.
Yeah,
Very true.
so I guess now it's, they're on the same path at least. And the idea is that Java 9 will not break your code unless you turn it on. That's the last I heard.
Very,
I
very
could be
nice.
wrong about that, but that's my understanding.
It almost seems like it's the
Um,
onus on the build tools as well, and to make sure
yeah,
that that works for either, and what's the path that they need to do. Obviously, Oracle can't develop for Maven, nor can they develop for Gradle.
yeah, that's
That's
true.
all.
But yeah, it seems like they would have gotten on the same page by now, but
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong.
yeah.
So, all right. So moving on. I don't have much to say about Java 1 except that it's coming up. I should
Okay,
mention I looks like I will be speaking there, but they've only accepted one talk somewhere so far. So we'll see what else they accept. They accepted
okay.
a talk on Polymer and writing a Polymer
Sweet.
app using the backend with JAX-RS and Java E MVC, which is actually not going to be part of Java EE anymore, but it does exist as a separate spec.
Okay.
So but I was looking it's always interesting to see what Oracle's theme is, what they're pushing this year. Last year it was cloud. We're going to show you so much cloud stuff that you can't think about anything else. This year, it looks like it's. I'm actually not seeing a big overarching theme the same way. We've got core Java platform, emerging languages, Java and devices, Java cloud and server-side server-side development, Java clients and user interfaces, Java community, Java development tools, and then Oracle code stuff. So I think that's pretty much the same tracks they've been
Interesting.
having for a while.
All right.
And then I don't see any huge. I don't think they've announced the big appreciation event person. So every year they have some top act do the appreciation event.
Oh wow.
I think it was who was it last year? I think
It's
it was
usually
supposed to
music,
be.
yes, right? Or are they sometimes?
Yeah, it's a musician usually. And usually it's there's a couple. God, I can't remember who it was last year. Oh, it was Gwen Stefani. Yeah. And I think there may have been somebody else, but I think she was the headliner. So we'll see who they have this year.
Cool.
I wanted to mention one other thing, which is interesting. We were talking about different languages, right? And Java is really good about backwards compatibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I ran into something interesting with TypeScript because I use it a lot these days. And we upgraded. I was using TypeScript 2 point something, so I upgraded 2.3, and lo and behold, everything broke.
Yay!
and so it was interesting. So what a lot of what TypeScript does is try to make the typing in JavaScript like add really extensive typing to JavaScript. And so a lot of what it does is type inference. So you don't declare the type, but
It's there.
but it figures out what it is based on what method you called and type in that method, or all the way down the chain. So a lot of what it does is I think new releases might get even more rigid because the type system has gotten more powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, one of the things that gives you TypeScript gives you is the ability to declare an optional property, right? So you can say, okay,
This language sounds great. It's so much like Scala. All right, go ahead.
oh, it does have. That's interesting. I'll have to see how Scala does it. But
I know. Yeah, I was just like, okay.
anyway, so if you have a person object, you can say name question mark string, which means that it might have a string property or it might not, right?
Oh, right, right, great. Yeah, understood.
So if you were to subclass that before, and you had a strange person object, and it had like 4 other properties but didn't have that name property, and let's say it had no other optional properties in your name object because your name object had all optional properties,
Mm-hmm.
TypeScript would say, okay, that's fine, because you implement that interface or you subclass it or whatever, and even though you don't have any of those properties, you subclassed it, so we'll consider the same thing. But now they're saying, okay, well, if you subclass it but you don't include any, and basically if you don't include any of the optional properties, then we're not saying it's the same thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I can sort of see that because TypeScript doesn't actually work by the type as much as it does the shape. So basically the other way you could say any object is my name, my person object,
Okay.
because any object may have a, might or might not have a name property. So anyway, so they tightened that up and that broke some stuff, which was interesting because
Yep.
you don't necessarily expect a point release to break something. So I thought that was a little surprising.
That is true. Like that should be kind of like a SEMVER guarantee that you're right. A minor version upgrade should not do that.
Yeah,
Scala
so I
did
guess
that in
they
the
don't really
past.
follow that.
And it almost seems like a rite of passage for a language. I'm surprised that Java had carried on to the way it did, maintaining as best as they can backwards compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Java is so impressive, and I think also underappreciated, because companies can pretty much bet that the code they develop today doesn't have to be redeveloped, and that is an
Exactly.
outstanding idea.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
Scala has that as well. In fact, Scala tends to say, "Well, we want this new feature. Screw you guys. We're going to put that in." And luckily for them, the audience is so nerdy that they just drool over the backwards compatibility break and can't wait to take on that challenge. But different community on that, and I think TypeScript has a good need to do that. I'm just, again, like you, surprised that they had this in a minor version.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of languages, another Google I/O thing was that Google has announced official support for Kotlin on top of Android,
Yep.
and Kotlin is the JetBrains language,
Hmm.
which I have never played with or read about. So I know really nothing about it. Even though I use IntelliJ all day long, I never did like new Kotlin class or whatever
Right.
to see what it looks like. So are you familiar with it at all?
Now I'm going to take a look right now.
Because I've been sort of curious about it, but I don't know. There's so many languages you kind of got to pick and choose.
Yeah, class,
And
and yeah. So here's the thing: like now, it's so funny that Scala is just like this anchor for other languages. I was looking at TypeScript, and I'm like, okay, I get that, I get that. It looks like Scala, and so same here with Kotlin, where the constructor is actually in line with the class. So you say class person constructor first name colon string, which just happens to be what we do in Scala. So yeah, I guess I know Kotlin.
really, so
And
you wait, go back to that constructor things. So
yeah,
you,
let's see if I could share my screen.
all right.
Let's see here. Which one's this? Share this chat. Screen share. I don't know. Can you see this?
Uh, yeah. Okay.
Can you see that? It says class person constructor. Do
Yep.
you see that? Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
actually,
Okay.
this right here, this class person first name this is exactly Scala as well.
And so does first name become a property, or is it
Yep.
just
Hmm.
that's just
Yep. You're
so
creating a class
first
with
name
a
is a
first
property?
name property. That is correct. Yeah.
TypeScript does the exact same thing.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
look at that. Kotlin has concise syntax. If you take this right here and just here, let me copy that. And here, let me come back over here. I'm going to go back and share my entire screen. A second here. I'm going to share my entire screen. All right. So let's say, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right. So I copied that. So let me paste that into the Scala REPL in here. And in fact, I think that'll do it. Here we go. Oh, yeah, there it is. New person.
So, okay, so for those who are listening, um, Dano just copied and pasted a
I don't
couple
know how
lines
old
of
you are, but there it
code.
is. And so now I'm just going to be like, there it is. And so
Wow. Okay,
Kito.
yeah. So he copied a couple lines of Kotlin code that declares a person object and passes in a couple of parameters in the constructor. But the way the constructor is defined, those parameters also become properties of
Yep.
the object. And you copy that directly from a page or reference page on Kotlin into the Scala REPL, and it works. So it's essentially Scala code.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of that. Yeah.
So do me a favor, add that link to the show notes, um,
Sure.
so we have that. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, isn't it? That's great.
Yeah. So okay, so I have to get my Kotlin on, because also I saw they had Kotlin JS. Um, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but
Yeah,
uh,
could be. Yeah.
so
They
that would be
definitely
interesting to
looks
see
like
if I
here
can.
they definitely diverged from Scala, but I mean the vals, vars are a Scala thing. Uh,
Right.
they you don't have to use the new keyword. That's although you could do that in Groovy as well. I'm sure Groovy programmers are clenching their fists right now and banging on their desk. We've had that for years, you jerk. But they have companion objects, so there's
Yep.
no such thing as a static call. So yeah, pretty
Hmm.
interesting. Yep.
Yeah, I have to. I mean, it really, to be quite honest, the fact that Google has endorsed it for Androids honestly makes it just that much more of a viable long-term language, you know.
Yeah.
And I was reading one of the announcement from JetBrains, and they basically said that they already have 40 people working on it. It's their
Oh
second
wow.
largest team, and I did not realize it was that big of a strategic investment for them. So
Wow. Yeah. Well, it seems that Google had to do it too for all the lawsuits pending from Oracle. Just seemed
yeah, and
like a natural path.
someone told me. I mean, I don't know if someone told me, but I heard that Android only supports like Java 6 or something. Like
Interesting.
I, I don't know. So I mean, it could be a way for them to get a better language on an older JVM
Right. Without
platform.
litigation hassles, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So very cool. Um, all right, we're running out of time, but there's one thing I did want to discuss, which I've gotten kind of interested in. I know you're not an Apple fanboy like me, but
I was
um,
running a Mac right now. I don't know if you saw that. That was kind of weird.
I remember when you got that Mac actually. Uh, but have you heard about ARKit? The
AirKit? No.
ARKit.
ARKit? No.
Yeah. So the Apple had their WWDC, their Worldwide Developer Conference, a couple
Yeah.
months ago, and one of the things they announced, other than finally an updated MacBook line, you see me, Dano, like obsessing about how to upgrade my Mac because I've
Yeah.
got a 2.5-year-old MacBook Pro. Um, and I'm afraid of them. I'm afraid of the new keyboard I keep on. But they basically, and I won 32 gigs of RAM. Anyways, that's a long story about the MacBook Pros. So they updated the MacBook, the hardware, came out with the new HomePod, completely overpriced speaker that does sort of echo like Amazon type
Oh,
stuff,
right.
but with Siri. Supposedly a really cool speaker, but for 300 and something dollars, I could buy like 20 Amazon Echoes, like or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So, but one of the most probably the most important thing they did was they announced ARKit. And ARKit is basically their sort of platform framework for writing augmented reality applications. Um,
Hmm.
and augmented reality is basically taking 3D images and putting them on top of a visible picture of reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, like if you're watching a video or watching, you're basically not watching a video. You're like looking through your phone at something, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
looking through your phone and you see like, a desk or something. Well, if you're using an augmented reality app on that desk, some 3D image might appear. So it could be anything you want,
Mm-hmm.
right? So an example that they had at the keynote was like basically this amazing like 3D game on top of your desk. So they had like, helicopters flying around, explosions, like a landscape, like all this, but it would appear on top of the desk in the room if you're looking through the phone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but you can take it even further, like you can, and you can investigate a 3D rendering of any building, right? Anything.
Mm-hmm.
You could do like Pokemon Go types things where you're trying to find, a little Pokemon, whatever object in the forest
Mm-hmm.
or something. And there's all sorts of other options. And I've been watching some videos to get a handle on it. Most of them are just cool things. Like I saw one which was a 3D portal. So
Right.
it's like you're just looking at a wall, but a door appears.
Mm-hmm.
And then you walk into the door and you're in some like a 3D world, you know?
Oh, cool. Yeah, I did see that.
Um,
That was amazing.
Yeah, probably the only really useful one I saw that wasn't more of a fun game sort of thing was a tape measure. And I was like, wow, that's really brilliant. I could measure anything like of any length, you
from a
know?
distance too.
Yeah. And that was kind of cool. But really what the fundamental thing about it is that and I know Google's doing this too, but I don't think I don't have the impression it's quite at the same level. But basically, getting that stuff to work is hard. So having a platform that makes it easy to just say, okay, I want to throw this 3D image over there, on something that you consider an actual plane, right?
Right.
It's like ARKit figures out inside whatever image, this is a plane, this is this,
Right.
if you put it here, this is what the shadow is going to look like, so they've done all the hard thinking for you. And it really made me start thinking more about this in general, like just in general application development, like what can we do with this now that it's like
Right.
becoming like a mainstream thing you can do?
Right. A
Um,
friend of mine was saying that they're the trucking industry and the car industries planning to use this to say, here's the car we have on the lot. Now, if you want to customize it, it would look like
mhm.
this,
That makes
and,
perfect sense.
and people will be able to
Yeah,
see that. Interior decorators, I think, would have a wonderful time with this, and say, look, if we do this to your kitchen, this is what it's really going to look like. And
that's
so
a really good use case too.
yeah, I mean, there
Yeah.
are so many different kinds of AR kind of really bright ideas that are going to just transform the way we do things.
Yeah, so I, of course, haven't come up with any cool ideas myself, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Uh,
I can't wait to see what I
so,
look like 70 pounds lighter without actually dieting and just use that as my mirror all the time. You look great. That
it
could be
would be alternate
dangerous. Oh my
reality.
gosh. I didn't even see. Sometimes I just make jokes that are just going to be a problem. And yeah, I think
That would sell pretty well, dude.
that would sell extremely well. Having just like a mirror that just shows who you could be. Oh
Yeah.
man. Oh, let's just be millionaires right now. No one's listening to this podcast. Let's just create what would we call this mirror?
Who
Like
could you
imagine,
be?
huh?
Who
Yeah.
could you be?
Yeah,
I
who
think
could
that's
you be?
all you have to say.
Right, who could you be? And just sell it as, if you keep looking at yourself the way you want to be seen, you'll be that person. Oh,
Yes.
damn.
Yes. Amazing affirmations.
That's right. From the company, amazing affirmations. Yeah. So yeah, we could be looking at a few things like that.
That would be
Oh, you
awesome.
and I don't have hair. You and
Oh, yes. What would you look like with hair?
that's
I
right.
like
Oh man, just like and you just like blow drying your hair in the morning just to make you feel better about it. Imagine you and I.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Well, we should probably move on. I actually I just thought of a pick. I wanted last episode we started having picks were just things we thought were cool,
Hmm.
and the one that I kind of got excited about was if I let me see if I can find the name of it. It's this tool that tracks the what you spend your time doing when you're writing code. So it'll track like what
Ooh.
IDE or editor you use, what language you use, how long you use it for whatever and within a given week.
All right.
Um, and of course, I don't remember the name of it, but I got really intrigued. And also, what it'll do is it'll show you uh, it'll send you a weekly report, and then also will show you on like a dashboard like what things look like
Wow.
what you spent your time doing. So let me
Cool.
see if I can find it really quick.
Kito, you spend so much time watching Selena Gomez videos. What?
Unfortunately, it doesn't pay attention to that stuff for better or worse.
Okay.
It's more of a developer sort of tool. It kind of ignores the other things. It's probably a good thing, right? Oh man. Okay. See, I thought the quickest way for me to find out what it was called was to load IntelliJ, but that seems to not actually be true. Shoot.
That's pretty cool that it does that stuff. That's
Yes, it is. Of course, I have no idea what it's called. I totally forgot the name. All right, well, I'll add it to. Oh, yes, Waka Time. Yes, I thought of it. All right.
cool.
Yeah, it's called Wakatime.
Okay. It
And
gives you a report on.
yeah, I'll show you mine real quick. Let me see if I can share this one thing here. Application window. Yeah. So here's my dashboard.
Oh,
Um,
that is cool.
and you see it actually shows the projects you worked on
Hmm.
and the languages,
Look at
you know.
TypeScript over there. Look at that.
Yeah, a lot of time. And HTML apparently. I guess that's probably Polymer elements.
Yeah.
JSON, that means I opened another stupid config file. Um, Java,
Java. Look at that.
JavaScript.
Good. That's a
And
good
then
percentage there for JavaScript.
and all my time in IntelliJ, and then I use TextMate sometimes.
All right. Very good.
Uh,
What's that
yeah, it
other
just keeps
graph?
track of
That
everything.
little wheel. Daily average. So
Daily
today,
average, yes. Today
because you're doing this podcast, you're down 62% on your
I
coding.
had IntelliJ closed. So yeah. So it's just kind of neat. I'm not really sure if this is actionable in any way, but it's just a neat report to see.
Oh yeah,
And
I was talking with Neil Ford about editors, and he's a very very Emacsy. He loves Emacs as his
mm-hmm.
tool, and he says he spends around 80% of his time on it. Hold on, go sneeze.
Bless you.
Sorry, thanks. Sorry about that. And I was just thinking, and I was just making a guess that I spent 80% of my time on Vim.
Yeah, now you
And
can find out for
now
sure.
I could find out for sure. That's a pretty cool tool.
Yeah, definitely. So any picks for you at all?
No, not following that. Mine are just going to be lame compared to what you just showed. Keep your mouth shut
Okay.
and just will enjoy the glory of your recommendation. Waka
Okay.
time. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's free, and you have to install a plugin if you're in some IDEs.
Okay.
Actually, I think I saw how to install a plugin for both TextMate and IntelliJ.
Okay.
Doesn't magically
Don't do TextMate.
look at
Nor
every
do they
program
have
I'm
one for
working
Vim. Vim would just be like, whoa, you spend way too much time on Vim.
on. They probably do. I find these things if there's just at least a decent number of people using it, someone will write a plugin for it.
Yeah. Terminal. Yeah, for me, Terminal, Vim, and IntelliJ. I think IntelliJ would be third. Easy. I don't use it as much as I probably should. Not really, probably should. I mean, it's a great tool, but if I'm doing a project, great. But if I'm doing a quick utility, I'm just going to use Vim.
I could see that.
Yeah.
All right. So, quick word about conferences. Polymer Summit's coming up. This is a free conference. It's one of those Google style events, so it really only it's free and has a lot of Google people. Although I think they have some external people this time. And it's in Copenhagen,
Great.
and that is the 22nd through the 23rd of August.
Great.
So, also, Java Zone is coming up in Oslo, Norway, one of my favorite Java conferences. That's September 13th through 14th. And then Java 1 is October 1st through 5th. And as I mentioned before, I will be speaking there, so you should check that out.
Okay. That means if you're doing business in San Francisco, October 1st or 5th, that has nothing to do with Java 1. Your hotels are going to be between $450 a night and $600 a night for a 3-star hotel.
Exactly. This is why I stayed with a friend last time, because they don't cover travel expenses. So
Right.
all right, so you've got some no flesh just stuffs coming up,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So if this comes out beforehand, we got we got Des Moines August 4th through 5th, Raleigh Durham August 18th 19th, Angular Summit which is coming up September 25th through 27th, Boston September 29th through August 1st, Seattle October 13th through 15th, and Minneapolis October 20th through 21st.
Where's the Angular Summit located?
I don't know.
Boston.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's in Boston.
I might check that out. It's kind of busy around then.
Okay.
Oh well. Okay.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of another very short podcast.
How long did we?
Oh, it's been about an hour.
Oh, that's fine.
It's hard to do these things in less than an hour, but I'm sure someone else could do it. Um, any final words, Dano?
No, just keep on trucking.
All right. Well, we'll be back at some point in the future, hopefully a little bit sooner. And there will be some changes to the site at some point. I'm going to be moving the hosting from where it is now, which is basically just a Liferay site, to Libsyn, which is actually 4 podcasts. So you should be noticing over time some changes. I'm not sure when it'll happen, but
Sounds good.
But should help with kind of keeping everything running smoothly. And enjoy your summer. Thanks for listening and watching if you
All right.
watched.
Excellent. See you, everybody.
All right. Bye bye.